Dr. Death, a story by Eby's heart. Graduating from medical school have always been Obam's greatest dream. Being the first child of his parents with 6 younger siblings, everyone was hoping for his graduation as a doctor to start training his younger siblings. Congratulations, Obam, you have been hired as a resident doctor in St. Bridget Hospital, the message read. Obam's first employment as a doctor came with a very high expectation to be making millions, but he was shocked when he received his employment letter and saw the peanuts they would be paying him. He wept in his room, "How can I survive with this amount a month?" His father just received chieftaincy title as the father of the very first medical doctor in their village. So expectation from Obam was so high. His salary could cover his own personal expenses, let alone others. After working for close to 6 months without sending millions home as expected of him, his parents and siblings stormed his house in the city to curse him. "You are so wicked, I sold 5 plots of land to see you through school, how can you refuse to help us? You are working in one of the best and biggest hospitals in this state, but you have forgotten us, your family?" His father and siblings said. "Everyone is calling me Mama Doctor, but I have absolutely nothing to show for it, not even good clothes. You are not a good son." Obam's mother chipped in and started crying. All Obam's effort to make them understand his situation, that being a doctor does not make one rich, and that he has been trying to keep his life afloat, failed. When they left, Obam cried and wished for a miracle. Then he did the unthinkable, he started stealing his patients' valuables, selling them to support his inconsiderate family. Being a doctor at a prestigious private hospital, his patients were well-to-do individuals, so he always stole either a watch or ring, anything a sick patient had on them. And most times, the patients' families never found out. Even when they do, they never prioritize finding it, since they have a sick person to tend to. This continued for long, and Obam's life improved a little bit, because he even stole their money. Then one day, a very wealthy man was brought to their hospital on an emergency situation. He rushed to attend to him because these were his kind of client. The man was putting on a special kind of eyeglasses, the type Obam had not seen before. "I wish I can take this eyeglasses," Obam told himself. "This eyeglass should worth a lot of money. I think it designers." He kept thinking a lot of things in his head and how much he would make from selling the eyeglasses. When he was leaving the hospital after his day shift at night, he stole the glasses when he saw that the man was sleeping and left. However, he was so shocked to receive a call immediately he got home that the man was dead. "He died immediately you left. I wonder why you didn't notice anything odd," his caller said and hung up. Obam was totally confused, but happy and relieved. At least no one will ever know he stole the man's glasses and some cash too. The man's kids looked for the glasses and even asked the hospital about it, because they wanted to bury their father with it as he had instructed them when he was alive, but no one could find it. Few days later, Obam did some research about designer glasses and found out he could get thousands of dollars for the same glasses he stole. He was happy. The day he was supposed to sell it, he wore it to just feel what was special about it. But what he saw made him scream out his lungs. He saw a woman very close to his face, breathing down his neck with her teeth and eyes dripping with blood. He tried to remove the glasses immediately, but couldn't remove it. He looked around the room and saw nothing. He tried everything possible to remove the glasses, even to break it, but failed. Obam had no choice than to wear the glasses to work the next day. When he got to work, he received an email from the bank to come for the loan he has been trying to get to open his own clinic. He was so shocked, because he was told earlier by the bank that no bank in the country can give him a loan of such huge amount without collateral. That same day, he got a call from the non-governmental organization he has been asking for financial help to open his own clinic. It seemed everyone instantly remembered him. Few days later, he was able to remove the glasses. "Oh, finally," he exclaimed. But everything started falling apart in his life the second he removed the glasses. Calls of disappointment here and there. Initially, he didn't link it to the glasses, but a voice in his head kept nudging him to put it on back. Immediately he did that, Everyone called back to apologies for pulling away. He danced and was happy his stealing has brought him a good thing. Within few months, Obam had erected a giant hospital complex with almost all the medical equipment needed to run a hospital. He never removed the glasses again. Money was coming in here and there, and he could not even explain his feelings until one day. He was sitting in his office late at night, going through his bank account and marveling at the sight of millions in his account, millions that he could not even account for how he made them, when the scary bloody face of the woman he had seen the first day he wore the glasses appeared. Obam almost screamed, but held himself as a man. "It's been 2 years of success and endless wealth, given to you by me. You know it, deep down, you know you didn't work for this. Money doesn't fall from the trees, you know. It's time for payment," the woman said, sitting on his table. "You have the option of saying yes or no to my deal." "I will pay anything," Obam blurted out, cutting her short. "Wait and hear the terms first," the woman said gently, licking her mouth. "I don't care what the payment is. I have tasted success and I can never go back to poverty. Everything I built within these 2 years must remain mine and mine alone," Obam said authoritatively. "Well, if you say so, I will come for my payment soon," the woman said and disappeared. The startled Obam started jumping and singing happily. He had always felt his riches were not his and that someone might come and take them away from him. But now, he is so sure he is making money for himself alone. Few months later, Obam was in the theater performing surgery on a young man who had an accident and broke his leg, when the woman appeared again. He became startled and asked his nurses to leave the theater. "Bend over and start drinking his blood," the woman commanded. Obam was so surprised and about to protest, but stopped when he felt the woman breathing close his face. He bent down and saw himself doing what he never thought he could ever do, drinking the blood from his patient. His patient dried up and was looking like ordinary skeleton. He was terrified and asked, "How do I explain this to his family?" The woman laughed the scariest laugh Obam has ever heard and said, "Tell them anything, no one can question you now." She disappeared, leaving Obam speechless, soaked in blood and numb with fear. Obam quickly got a hold of himself and ran to the sink to wash his hands. He washed everything off and covered the young man up, showing he had died. He came out of the theater and ordered his nurses to go back to their station and stay away from the theater. "What have I gotten myself into? How can I drink human blood? This payment is too much. Is it really worth my success? No, no, everything is worth my success. I will do anything to remain on top," he said and stood up. He walked to the waiting room and announced the death of the young man. His family started wailing and complaining of how his injury was too minor for him to have died, but Obam maintained a straight face and waited for their reaction when they see his corpse. They saw his corpse, but no one noticed anything odd. "It means they don't even see his corpse that way," Obam said to himself, dancing again in his office. He continued making his payment, and in due time. Every month, a young vibrant patient who is not sick dies mysteriously. No one could question him because his words were law and his influence mysterious. He became so rich and a very famous humanitarian. He built foundations and orphanages to deceive people. Everyone sang his praises. After all, he was just a successful medical doctor who worked hard for his success. No one knew the story behind such success. It took him years to get married. He didn't want anyone prying in his business, but the pressure from his parents wouldn't allow him to live like he wanted. He got married, and once his wife got pregnant, he sent her abroad to stay while he stayed back in the country. His sibling and parents became super rich. Everyone referenced them as that grass to grace rich family. Every nurse in his hospital knew something was wrong, but it always seemed like a distant memory. Obam noticed something very odd about himself. He doesn't age at all. Since he started payment to the woman that gave him wealth when he was in his early 30s, he had remained the same and even younger. This made him to stop visiting his parents and siblings because he was looking like a boy and everyone kept pointing it out. Then 40 years later, Obam's parents were long dead, some of his siblings were dead too, while some were old. He had stopped visiting his family abroad due to his looks. He looked way younger than his only child. When coming to work, he will wear fake grey hairs on his head and beard, but people could still see he looked young. But one day, a woman rushed her only child to the hospital. He had an accident while playing football and sustained head injury. Blood was flowing from his head. Immediately Obam saw him. He knew the boy will be his next sacrifice. The boy's mother, Mrs. Ali, was pacing about in the waiting room of the hospital while talking on the phone with relatives who were also on their way to the hospital to provide support to her. Few hours after taking the 17-year-old boy into the theater to stitch his head that was torn, Obam came out to announce that he was dead. Everyone around started crying, but his mother didn't cry. "I want to see my son," she commanded. When she did, she shouted, "What have you done to my son, and why is he almost like a skeleton?" This is the very first time anyone could see the corpse as it was. Immediately she said that, it was as if everyone's eyes opened that instant and they all screamed what? Obam, who was still shocked and terrified of being found out, quickly ran to his office and they all ran after him. He ran into his office and locked the door. "Open this door." They all started banging on the door and shouting at the top of their voices. By then the police were already on their way. When the police got there, Obam's office door was forcefully opened, but he had disappeared. They didn't know that he had a secret exit behind his office, so he escaped immediately he got into his office. The news of what Dr. Obam did circulated the whole country and no one could explain the mystery behind it or how he was able to turn his patient into a skeleton. People even suspected cultism and Obam's family and kinsmen denounced him, calling him an abomination and a disgrace. Then, many years later, Obam walked into a new hospital and said, "Hello, I am the new resident doctor, Dr. Obam," he said, smiling before the nurse at the reception. The nurses started drooling over him. "He is so handsome and young," one of the nurses said. Obam, who looked like a 30-year-old man, but was almost 150 years, presented himself as a United States-based experienced medical doctor. And since the hospital advertised for a United States experienced doctor, he applied and presented all the certificates he mysteriously got from a university in the United States. Just 1 week at the hospital, the deaths began. First it was a young mother who just gave birth, and Obam said she died of excessive bleeding. Then a child, and another patient. Before 1 year since Obam joined the hospital, they recorded more death than they had recorded in 5 years since its establishment. To make matters worse, Obam hypnotizes everyone around him to be blind to his killings. So as the deaths were happening, no one pointed fingers at him. They all kept saying it was becoming too much, including him. "I am Mrs. Oken, my daughter is in the theater to have her baby," a middle-aged woman introduced herself to the nurse at the reception. "Hold on, Ma, and have a seat," the nurse directed her cheerfully. Mrs. Oken was at the hospital's reception with her son-in-law, waiting for her daughter who was having her first child. "Calm down, Joe, we have done well to bring her to one of the best hospitals in the country, so she will be fine. I also heard their resident doctor is an experienced United States medical practitioner," Mrs. Oken said to soothe her son-in-law who was so anxious. Welcome doctor, all the nurses chorused as Obam was hurriedly walking to perform the caesarean operation as he was called to come. "Are you the doctor that will operate on my daughter?" Mrs. Oken quickly blocked Obam's way. "Please take good care of her for me," she pleaded earnestly. Obam was about to respond when Mrs. Ohan looked at his faint reflection in the glass window behind him and screamed. "What is that?" she asked, pointing at Obam's reflection. Obam turned around and saw himself looking like a rotten walking corpse. He turned to Mrs. Oken, who was still screaming in terror. "What is it?" he asked, pretending not to understand why she was reacting that way. "Do not touch my daughter," she shouted and ran to her son-in-law. "Go in there and bring out my daughter, we are leaving," Mrs. Oken said repeatedly. Obam, who doesn't know the next time he will get a patient worthy of sacrificing, since their hospital was having low patronage, and he had started showing as a corpse because his payment with blood has passed its due date, quickly rushed into the theater and locked the door. He cut the woman open and drained her of all the blood in her body. after which he entered the ceiling and escaped. When Mrs. Oaken and the nurses opened the door of the theatre, her daughter was long dead and was looking like an old corpse. But only Mrs. Oaken could see what she looked like. She mourned and sued the hospital. The news, just like before, circulated the country and Obam became a wanted person. He went into hiding again. Money was never his problem. Just a thought of needing money will make money to fill his suitcase. He lodged in the most expensive hotel and always applied costume of bushy white beard and hair. But the only thing he couldn't remove was still the same glasses he had worn for years. He believed the glasses were the source of his wealth and misery, but removing it was impossible. I am so tired of living and running around. I am above 150 years old, but a wanted man who cannot live past a week without consuming 4 liters of blood. He sat on the ground and thought deeply about his life over the years. How he was ready to do anything to be successful and make his family proud. How he became one of the richest doctors in the country, and most importantly, how he met the old man whose glasses he stole and changed his life. Weeping in serious regret, he thought of how happy and fulfilling life would have been if he had simply allowed life to play out by itself. If I had known I wouldn't have started stealing, I wouldn't have agreed to make this ridiculous deal. How do I get rid of this eyeglasses and be free from this lifeless life? He asked himself, crying. He arranged for a hookup girl. When she came, instead of draining her blood as he had always done in the past, he begged her to remove the glasses, but she could not. Just remove the glasses and I will give you 10 million, Obam said, looking white and rotten like a corpse already, as he had vowed never to take any more blood, because he wanted to rest. But he found out that the more the girl tried to remove the glasses by force, the hungrier for blood he got. Eventually, he drained the hookup girl of her blood. After that, he felt really hungry and started crying and calling on the strange woman he had seen in the beginning. He has been calling her to come for over 50 years, and nothing has happened. But today was different. The anger he was feeling today was too much. He was about to go out and look for another person that will take his glasses, when a weird laughter deafened his ears. You asked for endless wealth and I gave it to you. You also asked for long life. I gave it to you without any illness. Why are you crying and calling me for years now? The woman appeared and said in his ear. You thought money was everything, and you sold yourself to make it. Money and success sometimes is a state of the mind. When you have done your possible best with little or no result, why don't you allow the best you have put in manifest? Why rush to make it at once? You wanted to appear like who you are not, and then you started stealing, until you stole what was mine, she roared angrily. My covenant does not have an end. You wanted money and long life. You will continue to have it. Do not call me again, she said and disappeared. Obam, out of frustration, went to the bar of the hotel and drank until he lost consciousness. He woke up hours later without his eyes. His eyeglass was gone. He was startled by the voice of a young man who said, "Oh, you are awake. I am sorry to inform you that all your organs have failed and shutting down. I don't know how you are still alive, but we are advising you to call your family members, because you might not survive the next few hours." Obam started laughing and clapping happily, surprising all the medical personnel surrounding him. Sir, you aged beyond recognition overnight. Are you on any medication? Another doctor asked. But Obam continued laughing and coughing. The only thing he was able to ask them was, "What happened to my eye? Why are my eye sockets empty?" He dragged the doctor closest to him, close to his mouth, and whispered in his ear, "You took my glasses, right? Do not wear it, throw it away now, else you will regret not doing do. I wish anyone warned me when I stole that evil object." The doctor pulled away and shouted, "I think he has lost his senses too. He is talking about his glasses." Before the doctor could finish talking, Obam had melted like an ash, as if his corpse has been underground for years. Meanwhile, the man who stole the glasses took it home and locked it in his safe box, saying, "I will figure out what to do with you." The man was a cleaner in the hospital. He was drawn to the glasses without knowing why. Maybe because he has the mindset of making it fast by all means, just maybe. Don't let anyone pressure you, but most especially, do not pressure yourself.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.